breaking news from KXAN News.
Right now, police are investigating what officials are calling an apparent murder-suicide in Hutto.
Police officers say that a person called 911 this morning saying he killed 2 people. We want to go now to where police are sharing a live update about this investigation. Let's listen in.
For Hutto. But when they do happen, we come together to support one another and to help those impacted through these difficult times. This morning, Hutto police officers responded to a call from an individual stating that he had killed 2 people in the home and was going to commit suicide. An incident command post was established nearby to coordinate resources with the Hutto Fire Department, Emergency Management, the Williamson County Sheriff's Department, Precinct 4 Constable's Office, Hutto ISD, EMS, and law enforcement partners to ensure a swift and organized response. Officers arrived at the residence and initiated a verbal conversation with the individual through the door and were actively attempting to gain constructive dialogue when they heard a single gunshot from inside the home. Officers immediately made entry into the residence to discover 3 deceased adults, including the suspect. There is no danger to the public related to this incident. Our Criminal Investigations Division, Crime Scene Unit, and Hutto Fire Department remain on site processing evidence and working to determine the full circumstances surrounding this incident. This is a devastating situation, and we understand the impact that it has on our community. We're committed to a thorough investigation and will provide updates as they become available. We encourage anyone with any information to contact the Hutto Police Department, and we appreciate our community's patience and continued support as we work through this tragedy. Now, I will take questions at this time, but please keep in mind that this is an active investigation, so I will only share what I can and that which is factual.
What is the relationship between the 3?
That information has not been verified at this point, but it's a part of the investigation, and we will provide that as the investigation progresses and we have that actual information.
Are they family members, all 3?
That is unknown at this time.
Have you been called to that home before for other situations? Is it known to police at all, do you know?
We've got a call history that is very minor for incidents at that home, medical related, but nothing alarming that's connected to, that would give an indicator that we would have something like this in the future.
Are the 2 deceased adults, do we know male, female, ages?
We don't have the age information verified, but we do know that we have 1 male and 2 female victims.
When y'all received that call, what was the response? Was it a heavy response or just 1 unit going out, or was it multiple?
When you have a priority 1 call like that, we send multiple law enforcement officers. And in addition, with the information that was being provided, we also have a special response team, a SWAT team that most people call it. And they were preparing to go and provide support and resources as well. We also, when officers arrived on the scene, we sought resources from crisis negotiators in the event that we needed to utilize that support for that incident. But tragically, it escalated prior to all those resources arriving on the scene.
We saw family or friends arriving after the fact. Are there any sort of victim services available through the Hutto Police Department for people that may be at the scene right now?
Yes, sir. You know, it's unfortunate that we have to have a victim services coordinator, but we have a victim services coordinator and we have a victim services advocate for the Hutto Police Department, and they will be providing support and wraparound services to the families so that we can help them through this tragedy.
Can you tell us anything more about that phone call that came in to you all?
I don't have the specific details other than the individual called and said that he had killed 2 people in the home and he was going to commit suicide.
And you talk about this is something that doesn't really happen in Hutto a lot. How do you kind of prepare officers for kind of coming to scenes like this?
Although we don't have real world situations like this, we train with scenario-based events and actions, and we debrief on many of those things, and we break those scenarios down. So our officers are training weekly. Our special response team is training weekly. Our patrol officers are trained in de-escalation. They're trained in active shooter events. They're trained in a variety of areas of expertise that provide them the bandwidth and the competence to go and make sure that they're safely responding and trying to mitigate any potential tragedy.
Was there anyone else in the house besides the 3 deceased?
There is no indication at this time that there was anyone beyond the 3 in the home.
We did see some damage to the garage. Do we know if that's part of your investigation?
Yes, ma'am. That is a part of our investigation. In fact, we have our crime scene unit and our criminal investigation division. We got the fire department there looking into any and every possible stone that needs to be turned in the abundance of caution.
Yeah, we saw AFD kind of staging there still. We still have a lot of crime scene investigators on scene. This investigation does take a long time. It's probably going to be a little bit while before we get a little bit more details, right?
Yes, sir. And we're not in the business of rushing an investigation because we want to make sure that we're providing factual and thorough information related to the incident so that the public is aware. We're about transparency. We want people to know what we can tell them, and we want to reassure the public, since we are telling the public we had this tragedy, we also want them to know that there is no danger related to this incident to our public.
Okay, we're going to take our final question. Does HUDO have a crisis intervention team that helps with mental health related scenarios?
Yes, ma'am, we do. We have a crisis support specialist, and we have another crisis support staff member who recently joined our department, and they stay very connected to our community, providing that ongoing support to those in need and the wraparound services to those individuals and the families when they're experiencing crisis. They have done a tremendous job, and we're excited and thankful to have them providing that support in our community. And that's one of the reasons why we want people to, if you have concerns with family members or neighbors, to report that information to us so we can provide those support services and resources to help those going through a crisis so that they're not going through it alone.
A quick follow-up to that. Did you all, I know it's early in the investigation, but did you get any questions or any comments from neighbors in the short time that you've been there about concerns that they had or things that they had seen?
We don't have any information related to that at this point. The investigation may provide additional information, but at this point we don't have anything related to that. Okay, thank you all so much. Really appreciate you.
If you're just joining us this afternoon, that was the Hutto Police Department Police Chief Jeffrey Yarbrough sharing an update about what he called an extremely rare and devastating situation there in his community. What police shared just a few moments ago was that they received a call this morning from a man who said that he had killed 2 people and then he would commit suicide. Officers in a major response then arrived at that house, and officers said that they were talking to this suspected shooter, and then they heard a single gunshot, went into the home, and found 3 people dead. Those people are 1 man and 2 women. The police are obviously beginning their investigation. It could be a lengthy process, but what they're saying is that they are not able to share at this time the relationship between those 3 people.
We do want to note, and as you heard there, they spent a lot of time talking about the resources available to people in that community, or really to anyone who may be struggling. We want to note, and put here, 988 is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. You can call that 24/7. There are licensed counselors willing to talk through things with you. We also want to note the City of Hutto and the Hutto Police Department are offering up their Victim Assistance Unit. You can contact the City of Hutto and the Police Department to get connected with those victim services there. We want to note this is in light of a recent situation in Austin with a apparent murder-suicide in South Austin, a series of incidents in Central Texas. So we want to make sure to highlight those resources for people in our community. As Will noted, this is a developing investigation. We do have our reporter, who you heard a question from there, Barrett Tryon, is in Hutto. He is in that community and talking to people there at the scene. We're going to hopefully check in with him a bit later on in the show, and we have more details on this on our website, KXAN.com. We do want to get over now to a check outside.
Now, first warning weather with meteorologist Freddie Vela.
Hey everyone, let's go ahead and take a look at your calendar for February and what we've been dealing with. Some warm conditions over the past couple of days. 3 of those days within the above average temperature range. 83 for yesterday, which is a much warmer day. Here's a look at our current temperatures right now. 62 in Austin, 60 degrees in Fredericksburg and Mason, and 63 in Llano. A live look at our Bee Cave camera with winds still continuing to come in at 10 to 20 miles per hour. A few spots 25 25 miles per hour plus. But the cloudy conditions are expected to remain over the next few days, and we're expecting rain chances to start moving back up as we get out towards Monday and Tuesday. Coming up, we're going to be discussing a bit more about this cooler weather, NASCAR at COTA, and of course storms that are possible Monday into Tuesday.
Thanks so much, Freddie. We turn now to President Trump's ongoing efforts to shrink the federal government. That's being led by billionaire Elon Musk, who also attended the president's first cabinet meeting yesterday. This comes as the Supreme Court blocked a midnight deadline ordering the administration to release billions in frozen foreign assistance. NBC's Peter Alexander is following all of it for us.
Overnight, the Supreme Court wading into President Trump's battle over government spending. Ahead of a midnight deadline, Chief Justice John Roberts blocking a judge's order that the administration release $2 billion in frozen foreign aid funds. Aid groups sued the administration after President Trump froze the money in January. The administration had said it needed more time to review the payments. Roberts not resolving the underlying issues, but asking both sides to respond by Friday. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, the headliner at President Trump's first cabinet meeting. Musk touting his Department of Government Efficiency's sweeping effort to slash the federal workforce, with the biggest round of layoffs yet to come.
If we don't do this, America will go bankrupt.
In a memo obtained by NBC News, the White House budget director ordering agency heads to submit plans for large-scale reductions in force in 2 weeks. It follows Musk's directive that all federal workers email a list of 5 things they accomplished in the last week or face termination. The move catching several agency heads off guard, some instructing their employees not to respond.
I think that email perhaps was best interpreted as a performance review, but actually it was a pulse check review.
The president interjecting after Musk was asked if members of the cabinet were unhappy with him.
Hey, you want to let the cabinet speak just for a second? Is anybody unhappy with Elon? If you are, well, throw him out of here.
The president warning federal workers who have not yet replied to Musk's email could still be fired.
And it's possible that a lot of those people will be actually fired. And if that happened, that's okay.
For now, many federal workers like Jonathan Curry, who was just fired from what he calls his dream job at the IRS, are worried about what comes next.
I have a wife, 3 kids, and a 4th on the way. We're a single income family, so for our income to go from what it was to nothing abruptly with no severance, it can be frightening.
NBC's Peter Alexander with that story. We are getting some more information about how federal cuts from the Trump administration could affect Austin. Half of U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development workers could be laid off. A memo from the city of Austin says this could impact about $24 million in grants for its community programming. That money is meant to address things like homelessness and affordable housing. The city says departments should just stay the course for now until the federal agency providing its funding gives a direct statement to stop.
Now, first warning weather with meteorologist Freddie Fela.
All right, everyone, let's go ahead and take a look right now at current temperature. 62 degrees in Austin, 62 in Bastrop, 62 as we get out towards Rockdale, Fredericksburg at around 60, and Mason at around 60 degrees as well. Here's a look at satellite and radar with plenty of clouds across Central Texas at this time. We take a look at the rest of the state with sunnier skies farther up towards the Panhandle, a little bit of rainfall as you get out towards the Big Bend and then farther down into the Rio Grande Valley. Today, 68 degrees with cooler conditions and the cloudier skies, but we do have gusty winds that have been sticking around between 15 to 25 miles per hour. Could reach up to 30 miles per hour in certain spots. We'll play this out over the next couple of days. The clouds sticking around for the rest of the day today, clearing out as we get out towards tomorrow morning. And then we have a beautiful Friday into Saturday. We'll get a bit more cloud coverage returning for Saturday, and then even cloudier as we get back into Sunday. And you may see a little bit of a drizzle out there, so keep the umbrella handy on Sunday just in case. But not everyone is going to get it. Here's a look at Friday morning. It's going to be very cold now that we have that front that came through overnight and drive our temperatures down for tomorrow, especially with the clearing sky. All that daytime heating, in parentheses, that we get for the day will just pretty much fly away, and then we'll be left with beautiful and cold conditions out there. Here's a look at your weekend as we get in from Sunday into Monday and into Tuesday. And that's when we expect for rain chances to start ramping up one more time. A lot of moisture that's been flowing right back in. By the time we get to Tuesday, ahead of that next front, we'll see a line of thunderstorms starting to form Question is where will the severity be? And as of now, it looks like a majority of the more severe conditions will be farther up towards the north. Not a concern here, but we could still see some thunderstorms build up, especially out towards the eastern counties and then a bit farther out towards the east as well, getting closer out towards Houston. By Wednesday, things will clear up, and then we're fine as we get out towards Thursday and into Friday. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. 68 for Thursday, 73 as we get out towards Friday, the very first day of Ramadan. By Saturday, 79 degrees, and by Sunday, 77 degrees. What we're going to be watching then is from Monday into Tuesday into Wednesday with that next front coming in. That'll help not only take our temperatures down a bit, but ahead of it, that's where we'll see plenty of thunderstorms picking up. All right, let's go and send it over to Tommy House with a look at tornado potential.
Yeah, thanks, Freddie. We know March, we start off, it gets a bit stormy. We have our cold air clashes with a lot of moisture from the Gulf. And Texas, yes, it is the biggest state, obviously, when looking across the Deep South, averages the most tornadoes per the month of March, clocking in at 15, Alabama at 9, Mississippi 8, and then eastern Texas, north of Houston, somewhere around the Tyler, Texas area into northern Louisiana. That's where we could be seeing some supercells this Monday into Tuesday. The big picture is we have a pretty decent trough that's going to dig deep through the Rockies into the panhandle of Texas, and on the lower right side of that trough, that's where a surface low can bring a decent warm sector, so a lot of thunderstorm instability, as well as some strong straight line thunderstorms along this linear structure. A probable zone highlighted by the Storm Prediction Center. This includes Tyler, Texas, Alexandria, Louisiana, Greenville, Mississippi, and Jackson, Mississippi, and a possible around that includes Little Rock, Memphis, Nashville, Birmingham, and Montgomery. We'll be watching these storms closely at the First Warning Weather Center. We'll be right back.
Breaking news from KXAN News.
We have been following a developing story in Hutto where investigators say someone killed 2 people before shooting himself.
This apparent murder-suicide happened in a subdivision in Hutto. The police chief there gave an update just a few moments ago, sharing the latest about this ongoing investigation. KXAN's Barrett Tryon joins us now live to share more about what police told us.
Hey, well, good afternoon, Will and Avery. Yeah, Police Chief Yarbrough just updating media here on what happened earlier this morning. This all unfolded around 9 o'clock this morning in the Mager Meadows subdivision. Let's take a look at some video. Police say they were called just after 9 o'clock this morning after they got a 911 call when someone called and said they had shot 2 people. When police officers arrived on scene, they were able to make contact with that man. They said that's when they then heard a gunshot. When police were able to finally enter that home, they found 3 people dead. They said there are 3 victims. 2 of them were women and then that man. And right now, that investigation does point to an apparent murder-suicide. Police say there is right now no threat to the public, and this is an ongoing investigation. The police chief said, this is something that does not happen in Hutto, and so when these kind of incidents do happen, there was a large police response at first. The fire department is also on scene out there currently still. Apparently, there was something that also happened in the garage, and they made entry into the garage, so we're not sure if that's where everything went down or if what part of the investigation is leading officers and the fire department to the garage, but that is something they are also investigating. So right now, an apparent murder-suicide here in Hutto, ultimately with 3 people dead. Will and Avery, back to you.
Barrett, what did police share about the relationship between these 3 people?
So right now they said that's something they're investigating. They didn't say immediately how they were related, how they knew each other, but that is something that's still being investigated, and there are still officers on scene right now, so that's something they are looking into.
Barrett, we know earlier today you were over in that subdivision. Talk about what you saw. Were there neighbors out and about, or was it fairly quiet as police responded to the aftermath of this incident?
Probably like many neighborhoods, a lot of people were presumably at work, but we did see some family members that, as you can imagine, hearing the news that their loved one had died, they were very distraught, hysterical at times. But other than that, there were just police and fire crews out there outside the scene, and they do remain on scene. They're expected to stay there for a little longer still this afternoon.
our Barrett Tryon live in Hutto for us covering this heartbreaking situation. We will have more from his reporting on our website, KXAN.com. We also want to always remind people, as the city of Hutto said, there are resources available for victims, and 988 is the National Suicide Crisis Hotline that you can call 24/7. Barrett, thank you for being out there.
In-depth, investigative. This is KXAN News at Noon.
This week at the Texas Capitol, a notable moment of bipartisanship happened in the state Senate when state senators approved a bill unanimously to raise teacher pay. State lawmakers are also working in committees to hammer out how much to spend in taxpayer dollars over these next 2 years. And that's all unfolding as a public health scare is growing in West Texas. The number of measles cases keeps climbing, and a young child is the first to die from that outbreak.
We want to talk through all of these developments and, of course, get some insight from two former state lawmakers. We want to start with Dennis Bonnen, former Speaker of the House and representing Southeast Texas. That's over here on my, let me see, stage left, stage right. Then Mark Strama over by Will. That's how we'll do this. Served as a Democratic representative for the Austin area. So thanks to both of you for coming back and joining us, no matter what side you're on this week. We do want to start, we see lawmakers taking a different approach, tackling education differently than we've seen in the past, tackling school vouchers separately from this teacher pay measure that we're seeing chugging along. Why do you think the strategy this time to split those apart? And do you think it will stick, or might we see these things come together at some point?
Well, they can't come together because in the House, if they start separate, they will have a problem within their rules of creating one massive bill. It'll be a two-subject rule. So I don't see them coming together. With that said, they are tethered together. The House school choice bill says that we have to pass school finance, which has the teacher pay raise within that bill. And so I think part of this is bipartisanship. Democrat legislators said, I don't want you to pile all this into one bill and force me to be able to vote for my teacher pay raise. I have to vote for school choice. And so I think it's actually a great sign of bipartisanship saying, we'll separate these issues out so that you can vote how you feel about school choice and you can vote how you feel on the teacher pay raises, which of course everyone is for. And so it's, I think, a show of bipartisanship and respect to separate those issues, even though both will pass.
And Mark, do you think that that potentially provides cover to Republicans who are facing some criticism about potentially, siphoning off public dollars for private school tuition?
Probably not.
Okay.
But first of all, I think I hadn't thought about it the way you just described it, but that seems pretty fair. Like that actually provides cover to Democrats to let them vote for the pay increase and vote for school funding and vote against vouchers. I don't know if Republicans are looking for cover on their vote for vouchers. I think that they view it as a political asset. We should talk about why. There is not popular support for vouchers. There is not public demand for vouchers. There is a narrow constituency for vouchers, but it happens to be the prevailing view of the majority of people who vote in Republican primaries. And so, because most Republican legislators are elected in their primary and don't have a competitive district in the general election, they just need the cover of voting yes on what has become a litmus test issue for Republicans in the primary.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
I disagree.
Okay.
I think that there are many Republicans, and I really am frustrated that this issue is being discussed in the manner of it's a one or the other. You can be for your public schools. You can be a great advocate for public education, and you can also be an advocate for empowering parents to have greater choice in their children's education. Those do not have to be against each other. And so I think many Republicans actually, cover is not the word I would use, but they are excited to be able to provide to their constituents that school choice for the parents to make for their children's education while doing more funding and teacher raises for their public schools. That's the thing that I think is so off base in this conversation. And we were at Mark's dinner Monday night about civility and government engagement. And the reality of it is we've got to stop this game of if you're for that, you're against this. That's garbage. Someone who's for school choice is not against public schools. You can be both. And I think that's what you're seeing from a lot of Republicans. They're very excited. The Republicans in the House and Senate have made it a high priority that we're going to pay our teachers more. The legislature is going to do that. By the way, that's a local issue. That's the state stepping up with additional dollars to take care of those teachers. And so I don't think it's an either or, and I wish people would quit saying you're either one or you're the other.
If we can just maybe bring this one to a close. Your original question was, have these two issues been separated in a way that will keep them separate? And the answer to that is, even though they're in separate bills, probably not. Because what's likely to happen as it gets to the end of the session is that, as the governor said last session, he's going to say, you can't have one without the other. And I'm not going to support all of this funding for schools and teachers if I don't also get my way on vouchers. Now, that won't change the way Democrats vote on vouchers, but it is the macro dynamic of this session, that there's a lot of money available to fund public education with. Some of that money, based on the leadership of the legislature's sort of express kind of priority, is to divert some of it to private schools.
We will get back to something happening at the Capitol in just a moment, but I want to talk about something that's happening outside the building too. So tomorrow we're expecting to hear from both Austin and Travis County leaders about how they are monitoring and preparing for any potential measles cases. Again, there have been none confirmed in our area specifically, but the state health department is sharing updates about the work it's doing to address this outbreak in West Texas. However, we have not heard publicly from any of the major state leaders, including Governor Greg Abbott, about this. Do you think it would be worth more to hear from him or one of these other state leaders about how to prevent this and stay safe?
Well, certainly. I mean, whenever you have something like this, I wouldn't say they haven't said anything yet, in the sense that I think it's, unfortunately, we just had our first death, tragically. So I think it's on the very front cusp of this situation. So I think it'd be interesting to see if we do hear from the governor or someone in the next day or two on the matter. The reality of it is, you know, these are local issues that they've got to do their job in those local health departments. We need to make sure this doesn't get beyond West Texas. And I think the health departments are coordinating across the state to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I can assure you that the governor and state leadership, whatever resources that would be needed, will be provided if they are needed. Because at this point, it really comes down to whether you have a 95+% measles vaccination rate as to whether this is going to be a problem.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's noteworthy, as I kind of try to read between the lines of the news coverage of this, there must be some extensive contact tracing happening of the cases that have been identified, because we all got the alert that there was an exposure or a potential exposure at Texas State University and in the New Braunfels area.
Right.
So somebody is doing the work, and I assume it's the state health agencies that are doing the work to make sure that we identify the risks of spread. That's good. I'm glad that's being done. Let's be clear about what the public messaging needs to be. It needs to not just be, and it is a tragedy, as Dennis said, that this child has died. The public messaging to keep us safe is people need to get vaccinated. And for some reason, that's become a controversial issue in the Republican Party. It's controversial because of who our new Secretary of Health and Human Services is under the Trump administration. But it shouldn't be. That child should be alive.
Do you think the controversial nature of that topic is why we haven't heard from our state leaders yet? Or, as you said, is it just too soon to be commenting on this?
I think it's a little soon at this point, and we'll see whether we hear from them or not. But I think it's also early, and we'll see what happens in the coming days.
I mean, the death was recent, but the outbreak is now a week old, and it's over 100 cases, and that is something that hasn't happened in over a decade. This disease was considered eradicated because of the vaccine, and then people started developing skepticism about the vaccine. That skepticism predates Trump, by the way, and it's as common on the far left as on the far right.
Right.
It is a real byproduct of misinformation in an age of algorithmically curated news streams that aren't mediated by authentic news sources like you guys.
I do know we'll be watching for any statements or reaction. While we've still got some time here, so we cover a lot of big flashy bills, things that make headlines here, and we talk about those. But what often doesn't make headlines, and that's going on this week, appropriations hearings. So we do want to explain for folks that is where state leaders are coming before lawmakers. They are telling people how much it costs to do the things they do. Lawmakers will be divvying out those funds. Give us a sense of, you know, how important are appropriations? It's something our audience rarely will get to hear the nitty-gritty details of.
Yeah. It's the only bill that has to pass. It's all that matters. A conservative senior legislator, when I first came to the House, said, we only got to do one thing, pass the budget. I was actually visiting with a legislator last night, and it's overlooked. I'm glad we're talking about it, because being a subcommittee chair on appropriations or Senate Finance is a really big deal, because you're helping manage billions upon billions of dollars. And so the budget is kind of the big enchilada that people look right past, because it is significant. Now, with that said, I think part of why people look past it is we have to have a balanced budget constitutionally. I mean, we don't have a printing press in Austin, Texas, like they have in Washington, D.C., where you can print money you don't have and go spend it. So I think some people don't focus on it to the level they could, because we have good fiscal management in Texas. We do balance our budget. We only spend what we have, and we've been dealing in surpluses. But it is huge work, because talking about those surpluses, is that money going to be spent on property tax reductions? $10 billion is in the House and Senate budget to do that. Is that money going to be spent on more money for pub ed? There's billions of dollars in there from new money for pub ed. School choice, there's $1 billion in there for school choice. So think about it. We talk about these policy bills over here, but where the rubber meets the road on so many is in that budget.
Yeah, that price tag that comes with it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I will tell you, because I was talking to one of my students who observed some of those hearings yesterday. I think 100 people testified at the Subcommittee of Appropriations on Health and Human Services. Yeah, I think that's right. And my student was just like, this is actually amazing. People in the public get to go talk to legislators and tell them why that money matters to them. And I've always thought it's amazing too. Look, people come to Austin after getting elected with some preconceived ideas based on their experience and what they'd read and heard about the state budget and the state legislature. They come up and they get a heavy dose of the real world in the form of those hearings. And a lot of people's views evolve as a result of it. It's not inconsequential what gets presented in those hearings. It doesn't necessarily change somebody's whole view of the world or their ideology, but it changes some.
All right, we will leave our conversation there, because we could go much, much longer at this point. But Mark Strama, Dennis Bond, and thanks so much again for joining us. They will be back next Thursday for more updates about the latest developments in state politics. For now, though, we'll send it over to weather with Freddie.
Thank you very much. We take a live look right now at our Covington Sellers camera in Hyde, Texas, with cloudy conditions. Temperature still at about 62 degrees in Austin, 64 in San Marcos, Fredericksburg at 61, Georgetown at 62, and Bastrop at 65. The clouds are sticking around even as we get out towards next week. We're expecting for the chance of thunderstorms coming up. We'll be talking a bit more about your thunderstorm chances, the cooler day ahead, and NASCAR at COTA. That's all coming up after the break.
Happy Thursday, everybody, and thanks again for joining us here on KXAN News at noon. A live look over a cloudy sky over downtown Austin. We'll get an update about what's in store for your Friday and your weekend, if you have any plans out there, coming up in just a few moments. NASA is mapping out the universe, and this week the Space Administration is launching Sphere X. Its goal is to map the universe in 102 different colors.
We do that to get new insight about the origin of the universe, the new insight about the origin of galaxies, and also new insight about the origin of life.
Sphere X will map young solar systems in hopes of tracing a sort of universal water cycle. The mission is scheduled to last 2 years. 4 maps will be created in that time. The satellite is one of 2 scheduled to launch on Friday. The other, Punch, will study our sun, helping to detect potential solar winds and space weather.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at your drought monitor. This is the latest one compared to last week. With the latest drought monitor, we actually see an extension of the extreme conditions moving into Delano and Burnett just a bit more, with severe conditions starting to move farther up towards the north, encompassing all of San Saba now and much more of Lampasas than we had originally started to see. And that's starting to move farther up towards north and farther out towards the east as well. We definitely need some rainfall to start to mitigate the, or to stop the chances of the severe conditions expanding. Now, as we look at clouds and radar for right now, You got a lot of cloud coverage out there. A little bit of a breakage as you get down towards I-10 and farther out towards the west, but just not quite into Gillespie County overall. We zoom out a bit more for the rest of the state of Texas. Clear conditions from Dallas up through the Panhandle with rain chances farther down into the Rio Grande Valley. Here's a look at conditions for today. 68 degrees, cooler and cloudier than what we've seen the past few days with gustier conditions as well. Wind gusts up to about 30 miles per hour. Rain chances, though, they don't pick up again until we get to about Monday into Tuesday. And that's right ahead of that next front that's expected to arrive. So let's play this out a bit more throughout the next couple of days. Today, cloudy conditions. Tomorrow, clearer conditions. Temperatures down into the 40s early in the morning. By Saturday, we get a bit of cloud coverage coming back. And then by Sunday, we could start seeing a bit of drizzle, especially into the later part of the day. Get to about 9 p.m., 10 p.m., get a little bit of drizzle out there. And then that should all clear up as we get into Monday into Tuesday. That's when the rain chances really start to ramp up. As I mentioned, right ahead of that next front, you can see the line of thunderstorms that could pop up from Austin through Dallas and up towards Arkansas. And that moves out after the front comes in, and then we're just left with clear skies behind the front itself. The amount of rainfall, not as impressive, about 1/10 of an inch to about 1/4 of an inch of rain farther out towards the east to about 1/10 of an inch farther out towards the hill country that you get. But really, we're going to be watching for it tomorrow morning because that'll give us our 40-degree temperature mark one more time that we haven't seen in a few days. 7-day forecast, 68 Thursday, 73 on Friday, 79 as we get out towards Saturday. By Sunday, 77 degrees, and the front comes in Tuesday going into Wednesday with a chance of rain on Mardi Gras itself. Let's go ahead and send it over to Tommy House.
Yeah, thanks, Freddie. We've shown you this now several times in this newscast. This graphic is just so in-depth. I mean, there's just a lot to take in here, so this is why we're going to show you one last time. This is looking at tornado potential during the month of March. We're looking at averages here from 1999 to 2023. That's 25-year span of data that we observe. A higher likelihood of a tornado in eastern Texas through Louisiana, Jackson, Mississippi. We average 15 in Texas during the month of March. That's the most in the country. So severe weather is about to ramp up. Yes, we just had freezing temperatures a week ago, but it's Texas weather. It's constantly changing. Trough will dig deep through the southern plains in the coming few days, which will open the door for a surface low to develop somewhere on the lower right side of that trough. And with a lot of moisture coming in out of the south and the upper levels winds out of the west, I anticipate rotation as well as some severe weather. This is the Day 6 Storm Prediction Center outlook. Possible severe storms in eastern Texas and probable through cities like Tyler, east to Jackson, Mississippi. We'll be watching this closely.
This weekend, Hollywood is getting ready for its biggest night in entertainment, the Oscars.
Ooh, and after a night of winning awards for amazing performances, Sunday comes the 66th annual Governor's Ball. Celebrity chef Wolfgang Puck is serving up food for the hundreds and hundreds of guests. Organizers say that they have ordered 1,000 champagne bottles along with another 1,000 just for decorative purposes. Of course, there are also the many chocolate Oscars that get a lot of attention sprayed with gold dust. They're also debuting some new dishes for the stars.
We have some amazing new dishes and also some traditional dishes. Like we have some Thai-style noodles with Austrian shrimps mixed together with ginger, garlic, and scallions.
Okay, in case you're not a champagne person, Don Julio's mixologist is whipping up a signature cocktail for the event, and it is aptly named the Standing Ovation.
I'm not kidding, my stomach just growls.
I want to try one of those. All right. Meanwhile, workers rolled out the famed red carpet at the Dolby Theater ahead of the Oscars. Everyone is, of course, guessing who will take home those beautiful statuettes. Emilia Perez garnered the most nominations this year with 13. Meanwhile, both The Brutalist and Wicked earned 12. Conan O'Brien will host the show, and again, that is on Sunday night.
That is going to be so fun to watch. I am very much rooting for The Substance. Demi Moore, I've got my fingers crossed for her that she'll take home the trophy, but it seems like you're going to go to something this weekend to watch it all.
Yeah, I'm going to go to a viewing party. I'm really excited. I'll fill out my little sheet. I'm going to put Wicked the whole way down. No, I'm kidding.
Up and down the ballot.
Just the whole thing. But yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to happen. And of course, the looks. How can we forget all the looks?
Oh, yeah.
That's always so
I'm in
fun.
it for the red carpet fashion, for sure.
For sure. Here's something else I love to see. Beach volleyball. And you're going to be able to check it out right here with our sister station, KBVO. And of course, on the Longhorn Network at 2 p.m. Friday and Saturday. Saturday, there's going to be beach volleyball from UT. Of course, we want to encourage you to check that out. Of course, you can also be out there at the UT Intramural Fields at Guadalupe, so make sure you head on out there. 73 degrees on Friday, 79 on Saturday. No chance of rain, so it's going to be perfect for some beach volleyball. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. Ramadan kicks off tomorrow and Mardi Gras on Tuesday. The only difference is, though, that we're expecting for the possibility of some thunderstorms on Tuesday itself, and then a front comes in. They'll drive our temperatures down just a bit, not too much, but just enough to get us away from the 80s.
All right, everybody, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. We will see you back here in about half an hour with another update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.